Hello, I'm Phoenix Crockett, here to perform the song Lapida on cello by Jehi Sheshi. The song is about one world changing into another, about how reality can transform into something greater than its parts. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to All Souls Interfaith Gathering for our Music and Spirit service on Sunday, May the 31st. I'm Reverend Don Chatfield, lead pastor here at All Souls, and it's my delight to welcome all of you to this online service. We're very happy that you've chosen to join us. Before we get started this evening, I'd like to share with you a few opportunities to remain connected to All Souls during this time. And the first one happens at the very end of this service. At 6 p.m. this evening, we'll be hosting a virtual social hour on Zoom. We started this last week, and it was so good to see everyone's faces and just to have some time to visit and catch up with one another. So we hope you'll join us this evening at 6 or after, and come by even if you can just stay for a few moments to visit. Next Sunday at 9 o'clock a.m., our morning meditation will be on Zoom, and that will be followed by Our Search for Meaning at 10:30 a.m. You can find links to all of those on our website, allsoulsinterfaith.org. The All Souls men's group will be convening on Thursday evening at 6 p.m., and there's a link on our website where you can email for some additional information about participating in that group. Tonight we are looking forward to hearing from our Minister for Service Coordination, Reverend Kim Marie Glenn, who will be bringing our homily this evening. And we're also deeply grateful to many friends and musicians in our community who have donated tonight's music to our service. So I encourage you to watch this video all the way to the end to see the credit slide that will list all of those who've been a part of music in tonight's service. Our opening words this evening focus on the theme that we've been addressing this month. We've been looking for the last few weeks at overcoming fear, and we conclude that series this evening with the theme, Rising Through the Flames of Fear. And as I mentioned in last week's homily, it's so important for us not to avoid the pain, the disappointment, the brokenness that we've experienced. It's important not to bypass that, but instead to be able to sit with it and to allow it to be transformed. And so that's what we're addressing this evening. At the last spiritual center where Karen and I worked, we had an underground meditation chamber, and it was really designed to do this type of transformative work. And in that meditation chamber, we had murals to the feminine divine, specifically the Dark Mother, the Black Madonna of Christianity, Black Tara of Buddhism, Kali, Durga. And the idea for that meditation space was to provide a very safe place where we could sit in darkness and sit with brokenness and allow change and growth to occur. And so for our opening words tonight, we begin with a prayer to Mother Tara. So I invite you now to join me in a spirit of contemplation as we hear these words. From our hearts we bow to Divine Mother Tara, essence of love and compassion. From now until we reach enlightenment, hook us with your great love and kindness to liberate us. Empower us to cut the root of samsara, self-grasping, and to understand the most difficult middle way, free from the errors of extremes. Divine wisdom, Mother Tara, you know everything about our lives, our ups and our downs, our good and our bad. Think lovingly of us, our only mother. May the hook of your compassion transform our minds and transform the minds of all beings, whoever they are. May the three jewels, and especially the divine wisdom, Mother, whose essence is compassion, hold us dear until we reach enlightenment. May we quickly conquer the four negative forces.
Hi everyone, it's Reverend Kimberly Glenn, and our chalice is already lit for this evening, but I'm doing a process of allowing us to see the rising of smoke to symbolize that we have one way of being and then we can transform and rise. So watching that smoke rise, and we transform into another form of lighter sense of self. And that's the process of rising through the flames of fear. The chalice quote that I'm going to read are actually lyrics from a rainbow chant. And the lyrics are, "We are rising up like a phoenix from a fire. Brothers and sisters, spread your wings and fly higher. We are rising up. We are rising up. We are rising up. We are opening up in sweet surrender to the luminous love light of the One. We are opening up in sweet surrender to the luminous love light of the One. We are opening. We are opening. We are opening." So I hope you can sing along with everyone. They're going to sing it right now, and you can sing along. I wanted to start off with a story about something that happened last night with a friend. So I'm talking with her. She shares a beautiful poem, and I ask her, we're going to be in a group, and I say, "Can you share that beautiful poem with everyone?" And she says, "Sure." And she shares it. And everyone says they love it. And we go about our group. And after, I call her back and I say, "How was that for you to share that poem?" And she said to me, and she's okay with me sharing this without her name, she said, it felt really vulnerable to share that poem. And even though everybody said that they liked my poem, I don't really believe them. I thought that was fascinating. I thought it broke my heart. And I said to her, well, just so you know, I was one of those people and I said I liked it. And I wouldn't have asked you to read it if I didn't like it. So do you believe me? And she said, yeah, I believe you, but I don't know if I believe everyone. And I thought, interesting. How do we know what is real? And I started to think about fear. And I started to think of this definition that maybe some of you heard, and I love this definition of fear. It's false evidence appearing real. False evidence appearing real. So really what she was doing is kind of making up that people didn't really like it, when maybe they really did, became a false evidence appearing real. So in some ways, we kind of turn from ourselves when fear happens, and we sort of isolate and we don't feel as connected. And I wanted to read to you a quote from the Buddha. The Buddha said that our fear is great, but greater yet is the truth of our essential connectedness. So my question around that is, our fear is great, right? We all have a lot of fears going on, but greater yet is the truth of our essential connectedness. How do we remain connected to ourselves and to others when these fears sometimes take over? I know for me it can be very isolating, and I don't always love to share fear. Not sure many people do. Some of our fears we love to just put them in a box, tuck them away, and never show them to anyone or not even look at them ourselves again. It's too vulnerable. And really that's what I'm going to talk about tonight. There's a form of fear which is also to forget everything and run away. And that serves us in many ways. There's a fear, I'm never going to do that again. For my friend, it could be like, I'm never going to share another piece of poetry ever again because that was really vulnerable and I didn't like the way that felt. Even though it was a positive experience, her fear had made it into something a little bit more negative. So forget everything and run, which can serve us and served us for a while when we were in survival. If there are creatures that would want to attack us, this was a great one. We had to run. But I'm talking more about our internal processes with ego and fear that way. And then there's another one, which is face everything and rise. Face everything and rise. And this is the fear that I'm going to talk about tonight. It's really about letting the fires of transformation work through us, feeling everything we need to feel, facing fear right in the face and becoming intimate with it, really seeing it for what it is. And this is that practice where, in May, I started to write to fear, and I started to say, dear fear, and I'd write out my fears. And then I'd write from a place of love, and then I'd sign it, love, love. This is really, it's facing the fears, facing everything, and rising. So I'm learning how to transform the fear and see the fear as actually love. Oftentimes I would see that it was just a way that it was trying to protect me. So I'd transform it, I'd rise above it, I'd learn a new way to work with the fear and learn how it was actually serving me and trying to serve me in some way. Helped transform and loosen its grips. So I have a quote here by Carolyn Myss, a spiritual teacher. She says, we are living the myth of the phoenix, falling from its perch into the fires of transformation. Much of our familiar world will indeed be reduced to ashes. And yet the promise of the phoenix is it will rise again. It always rises again. And so will we. And so will we. So we continue to learn how to rise. And tonight I hope we can look deeper at our own fears, and we can also learn from the power of the phoenix and what the phoenix did. It chose to actually come into its own funeral fire and be consumed by its own, I'm sure, fears, or at least pain and suffering, and then chose to transform and go through that process so it could be something that was really shedding light on the rest of humanity. So I want to talk a little bit about the phoenix for those of you who don't know anything about it. The phoenix is a beautiful mystical bird, magical bird. It has beautiful red and golden and yellow plumage, and if it was flying through the air, it actually would look a lot like a ball of fire. It really had symbolism in death and rebirth and transformation, renewal, cosmic fire. It's a really powerful energy. It is said to be originated from the desert, which I thought was interesting because a lot of our fears, it is said, can't hide in the desert. So you hear a lot of stories, a lot of spiritual teachers walk into the desert, and that's when they're ready to face their fears. So I just think it's a powerful process to think that this is where the phoenix lives. It knows this place pretty well. And so it chooses to create this funeral pyre, right? And it puts all these sticks and little pieces of palm and different things together that it's going to eventually light. And I was reading about the ancient, when you go back to early Christians, they actually said that in it, the phoenix would add frankincense and myrrh and sacred spices. So it's actually creating like a sacred death. And I thought to myself, what would I do to create a sacred death? And what would you do to create a sacred death? Would you be adding something as a ritual if you were going to be facing a big fear? I started to think of that I often would want to, have really dear and trusted friends around me. That's something I would do. Or maybe I would actually go out into the woods. I know if I really had some really big fears, I often get settled by the woods. So I'd go out and I'd find, my favorite stone or my favorite tree. And maybe I'd make even a little altar sometimes, and I'd just sit and be with it. And sometimes that would help. So what are our spiritual tools that we have that can help us kind of connect with our own fear and really get to feel everything and not want to bolt out of there and run away? So I want to talk a little bit more about some other traditions and what I found about the phoenix, one of them being the Jewish tradition. In the Talmud, it was saying that the phoenix was one of the only birds that actually didn't eat from the forbidden fruit at the tree of knowledge. So because of that, God actually gave the phoenix immortal life. And then the phoenix was able to actually, when it died and when it went through that whole transformation, which is a really intense process, its ashes were actually used to bring others back to life because it held that immortal energy. So it makes me think that when we choose to do all the inner work that we do, that in turn it's life-giving to others, that we become beacons and medicine to others. And the phoenix really holds that energy too. In other traditions, like I was reading about in Islam, it's called the anga, and it's really a bird created by God, very much associated with the phoenix energy. In indigenous populations, they call it the thunderbird, and it looks just like the phoenix. In China, they call it the Fen Wan, and that's a bird that is said to have come from the yin and the yang, which are two different birds, and then they become as one. So the union is actually like the phoenix and the Yan Wan. And there's depictions of that for like 7,000 years. And in Egypt, there was a bird, it looks a lot like a heron. It's called the Bennu bird. And if you look to the origins of the word, it means weben, which basically means to rise or ascend or to shine. So again, it had that phoenix energy. So many traditions connected to the phoenix. And in Buddhism, when I was studying Buddhism and going through Tibet, I would notice that on some of the really potent sites, the monasteries, some would have a big phoenix on the top. And the phoenix was really a major symbol because it really meant like enlightenment. It meant like nirvana. It meant the courage that it takes to continue to be consumed by the fires of transformation, and to be with fear, to be with, some of the hardest things that we need to transform, and to work with it and do the work and purify, maybe even lifetime after lifetime, to finally come to that point where we're so purified. So the symbolism in Buddhism was all about utmost peace, prosperity, happiness. It's really about attainment, enlightenment. Really powerful symbol. And pagans also used the symbol of the phoenix really as an internal process again, and working with an internal process to then externally transform and be a creative process of transformation. So I love how it ran through so many different traditions. It really made me think of how connected everything is in terms of, I didn't actually think a lot of our spiritual traditions were connected to the phoenix, but so many traditions connected to that energy of life and death and facing hardship to then transform it. I'm going to read a poem that is by mystic poet Hafiz. And before I read it, I just want to honor it to people like my friend who maybe wasn't going to read her poetry. It's important for us to share the things that we have, and if fear is stopping us from doing anything that feels like an offering for others, then I hope we can transform that. So Hafiz says, I have learned so much from God that I can no longer call myself a Christian, a Hindu, a Muslim, a Buddhist, a Jew. The truth has shared so much of itself with me that I can no longer call myself a man, a woman, an angel, or even pure soul. Love has befriended Hafiz so completely it has turned to ash and freed me of every concept and image my mind has ever known. I have learned so much. So may we continue to allow ourselves to unlearn a lot of different things and learn more about ourselves, learn to face our fears, learn to transform, to be transformed and then transform others, and make this world a better place by doing our own inner work and being on our own spiritual path of ascendance, whatever that may look like, so we can continue to rise together. May you all rise, and may we rise together.
It never quits, it never stops, always something new. The Lord is doing a work on you. Just when she finishes one thing, she starts on a new. The Lord is doing a work on you. Just rejoice when you're feeling unsorted out. That's the way that a puzzle should be. With praise to her name, we can rejoice, not complain, just to see how she can renew us spiritually. It never quits, it never stops, always something new. The Lord is doing a work on you. Just when she finishes one thing, she starts on a new. The Lord is doing a work on you. It never quits, it never stops, always something new. The Lord is doing a work on you. Just when she finishes one thing, she starts on a new. A little tiny squirrel. It's a teensy little chipmunk. A baby. Careful, don't get too close. You don't want to scare it.
So this is our meditation and our prayer section. Let's just take a moment to get a candle if you want to get a candle, or just get comfortable in your seat so you can get more cozy. And we're going to take a few minutes to do some silence and also just go into a little bit of a meditation and exploration. So when you're ready, you can close your eyes, start to settle in. And just notice the breath. Notice if there's any restrictions anywhere. If you're noticing the breath gets stuck, often that's actually a place where maybe some fear is being held. So just noticing and choosing to breathe through. And we're going to bring into our consciousness tonight just this concept of fear. And remember, I talked about false evidence appearing real. So I want you to come up with one of your fears that you have. Could be anything, really. Maybe something that you think maybe isn't true. It could be one of those false evidences. Just notice whatever the fear is. We're going to do a little practice. This is from the work of Byron Katie. She has 4 questions that she asks fear I think are really powerful. So let's first just take a moment to come into what is that our fear that we're going to work with. So bringing in a fear that we have. So it could be something like my fears, finances, that I'm not going to have enough money, or it could be that, I'm never going to get back to doing the thing I love because it's shut down, or whatever the fears. Allow it. And the first question we're going to ask it to become more intimately acquainted with it, to remain curious towards it, is it true? So the fear that you're telling yourself, is it true? And my second question is, can you absolutely know it's true? Can you know for certain it's true? Do you have data? Do you have proof? Or is it just a story? And the third question is, how do you react when that fear comes up? How do you react? Maybe you even can feel it in your body. So just tuning into the body, tuning into all the senses. How do you react? Your mind, your body, your heart, your emotions. And the last one is, who would you be without this thought? So really, I like to think of it almost as, how could you rise? Who would you be without this thought? Without this thought weighing you down, what could you rise to be? Just spend a moment to be with that feeling of freedom if you don't have that weight, that fear. And breathing into that. Continuing to breathe, just allow ourselves to bring in any prayers that we need for ourselves, for maybe that fear, any words of wisdom we want to tell ourselves, maybe from a place of love. How would love speak to that fear? And speak to the fear as if love was speaking right directly to it. Allow it to transform. And again, just noticing your body, noticing your breath, and notice now how your breath is moving through your body. Notice if it gets stuck anywhere. Notice if there's any qualities of transformation within. Noticing that if we take time to personally transform things, that we can actually transform so much around us. We can see the world as it is. I'm going to read a quick quote by actor Joaquin Phoenix. He says, "I think we fear the idea of personal change because we think we have to sacrifice something or to give something up. But human beings at our best are so inventive and creative and ingenious. And I think when we use love and compassion as our guiding principles, we can create, develop, and implement systems of change that are beneficial to all sentient beings and to the environment." I'm going to read the last line. "I think when we use love and compassion as our guiding principles, we can create, develop, and implement systems of change that are beneficial to all sentient beings and the environment." So may we continue to work with our own fears, transform our own fears, so we can then transform the lives around us, the beings around us, transform our environment. Thank you so much for your prayers and meditations. Let's continue just to take one moment of collective silence for anyone experiencing fear. You can imagine different places and people experiencing fear. Let's close our eyes and just take a minute of silence to allow love and compassion to permeate anyone in fear. Open up your eyes, come back to the room. Thank you so much for that collective prayer. It's powerful when we do that. I know normally in our service, this is the time where we'd actually pass out our offering basket. So we've been doing a blessing online and reminding people that you can go right to our website. You can go right to the site below too. It says donate, and we love anything you can give to donate to All Souls for a contribution. And we just want to thank everyone who's been continuing to hold this community during this very uncertain time. So thank you all. Thank you all who continue to be stewards of All Souls. We have a blessing that we do that you take your hand out and you can put in whatever you want. If you want to think of money, if you want to think of love, compassion, whatever it is, and you bring it and you say, divine love as me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, and all that I give.
Hi, my name is Karen Costello, and this is my husband, Marty. We moved to Vermont about 16 years ago from the Philadelphia area. For us, Vermont is a healing place and good for the soul, and so we purposely chose to come to Vermont as part of our spiritual journey. About 8 years ago, we found All Souls through the classes that Mary Abley, the founding pastor, was leading. We participated in several classes and also started attending the evening music and spirit service about 5 years ago.
I'm trying to look at my teleprompter here, but I grew up in Philadelphia, and I was raised in a large Catholic family. And I was fortunate enough to marry the only non-Catholic Italian girl in Philadelphia, Karen, and that marriage changed everything. And since that time, I've been on a very interesting journey for the past 47 years. Our son attended UVM, and that's what brought us to Vermont. I also was asked by Mary to participate in the internship program, which I did, enjoyed that for 2.5 years or so. And now I also serve on the board. So during that time, Mary kept opening the doors and pulling me into All Souls, and I am very grateful that she did.
So what resonates the most with me? Well, there's so much about All Souls that resonates with me, but I think I would like to focus on 3 main things that are especially meaningful to me. Firstly, I really value the 4 pillars that All Souls has adopted: spirituality, community, music, and the environment. All 4 of them are important to me, and I appreciate the focus that All Souls has placed on them. The second thing is the opportunity to explore and learn in an open and accepting environment that supports each of our individual spiritual journeys. The classes we took helped us to explore our soul's journey and gave us a better understanding of other world religions. This year, Reverend Don is guiding us through topics such as overcoming fear and building community, and I really appreciate his goal to both inform us and give us tools to use in our everyday lives. The third is the All Souls community, which has provided us with the opportunity to interact and form relationships with kindred spirits. We really value the friendships we've developed at All Souls and look forward to the opportunity to form new relationships.
What resonates with me, it's largely the same as what Karen said, but without a doubt, it is the many really nice people we have met at All Souls. People who are intellectually curious, friendly, welcoming, respectful of one another, and also environmentally conscious and respectful of the earth. All seem to be very sensitive souls and on their individual spiritual journey, which I like very much. Well, not only the music and spirit services we attend, but recently I started to also attend the morning meditation service. And that's been very, very good for me. And there too, we meet a lot of nice people, really at both services.
Okay, why do we choose to support All Souls financially? I'll let Marty answer that one.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say we very strongly believe in All Souls' vision and mission. And we place a very high value on belonging to a welcoming interfaith community. We believe the emerging interfaith tradition is very important in today's troubled world. And it's our hope that All Souls will provide a place where all people can come together to share, explore, and support one another as we walk along our chosen individual paths on our spiritual journey. We support All Souls because we want to join with Don and our many friends at All Souls to help create something special and much needed in the world today.
And we hope you will join with us too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Tonight's closing words come to us from Carl Jung, who wrote and researched extensively on the shadow side and the importance for us to recognize that side of ourselves in order to live a more fully realized life. So let's listen carefully to his words. Knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darkness of other people. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. Your visions will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes. And so it is our prayer as we go into this new week that we will all find the strength to look inside and to awaken to our full self. We wish you many blessings in this week to come, and we hope that you'll join us in just a few moments on Zoom for our virtual social hour.